First of all, thanks everybody for joining. As you can see, I added some amazing graphics to our coffee break screen. It's our 50th coffee break, which is a crazy accomplishment. Thanks especially to Quincy, who runs this on our end. So this coffee break series is something that we started sometime post-pandemic. I don't know exactly when the first occasion was, but as everyone was reaching out and looking to connect, and we couldn't do that in person. This coffee break series was part of how Greenwald Research was approaching it. And we've come a long way. 50 coffee breaks, lots of interesting and important research that we've shared. And we have, I think, a pretty important, pretty interesting topic for the 50th. It's probably so important these days that our next 50 may be about AI as well. I'm sure you're joining because these are questions that you all are facing in your own jobs, your own industry, and financial advice in the world of financial services is definitely not immune. There is a rapidly, very dramatically changing environment that we are seeing unfold and has escalated, I think, considerably just in 2026. So we're going to kind of talk about some of the research that we've been doing that gives a little bit of insights into the evolving nature just over the last couple of years. And we'll talk about how things have already changed, as you can see the subheader from experimentation and novelty hypotheticals back in 2023 to really bigger words like expectation and infrastructure, basically the groundwork of how a lot of things are being done these days. So I'm going to walk through this presentation and coffee break information, and we'll leave time at the end for questions. So feel free to put questions in the chat if you'd like, or wait till the end. Would love to hear from you. All right. So first, trying to think back, way back into 2023, try to get in your time machine back to the yesteryears. Doesn't feel like that should be that long of a time. But in terms of AI world, it feels like ChatGPT's been here for a decade. But it's only 2023 that this has really started to unfold. I think fall of 2022 was when ChatGPT came out. Um, and naturally, the research world was changing pretty rapidly too. It was very novelty at the time, but it felt like something different. It felt like something that we needed to start tracking. And so even in our Retiree Insights program, where we do research with financial advisors and consumers being the pre-retiree and retiree audience that are often going to financial advisors for retirement planning and advice. We wanted to know, what do they think? And comfort level and interest was pretty small. So you can see comfort level of AI playing a role in financial advice and planning for consumers, 8% highly comfortable, 25% somewhat. Advisors, 11% highly comfortable, 22% somewhat. And there is a portion of people, even in the first year of AI, that were at least somewhat comfortable. They were curious about it. But you could easily look at this and dismiss it, that this is not really something that people were envisioning playing that big of a role, that they were comfortable with it at least, nor did they have interest. You can see in working with an advisor who uses AI tools, 14% highly interested, 32% somewhat. And in 2023, this all very much seemed like a repeat of robo advice. So we did ask advisors at the time, what role can AI actually play for you? And you can see this is not the extent of what people told us, but there were a lot of common themes of people saying it's going to continue the role of the robo advisor, but in a more active sense. It's similar to that of a robo advising. There's a limited market that it will serve, not the high net worth type of client. Or they could represent robo advisors 2.0. Very clear sentiment of what this felt like at the time. And if you go back to 2017, when robo advisors were in fact the kind of topic of the day, um, when we surveyed consumers in the Retiree Insights survey, consumer appetite was pretty muted for that as well. 5% highly appealing, 26% somewhat. Feels eerily similar to those stats that we just saw on the previous page. Every reason to believe that robo-advice was kind of the vision for how this would play out as well. And it also felt less pressing because advisors tend to be slow adopters of technology. You can see this is not our quote, it's coming from the Kitces advisor tech study. And they say at the same time, one of the unique challenges in advisor tech is that advisors by and large are not fast adopters. The average advisor technology category has a turnover rate of less than 5%, implying that the average advisor only swaps out their technology only once every decade or two. Exclamation mark theirs. And as a result, even great new innovations rarely go viral in the advisor marketplace. And that's not to say that technology isn't kind of adapted and finds its way in the hands of advisors. Clearly, there's a lot of technology that goes into financial planning and financial advice, but it's not a rapidly viral marketplace for technology. There's a lot of hoops that things have to go through to make it into how it gets used in that world. But all of this is 2023. That's our time machine, took us back to 2023, and a lot has changed in a couple years after that. A lot has changed this year. And I don't think the robo-advisor parallel holds anymore or in the future. And so to kind of understand this, we're gonna look at what advisors and consumers were telling us this past year, and then go into what has happened since. So same survey, Retiree Insights. We've asked the same question of advisors. How comfortable are you? Do you see AI as an opportunity for you and your industry? Do you see AI as a threat? And you can see that advisors have continued to warm to the idea of AI playing a role in delivery of financial advice. And I use those words intentionally because this is not overwhelming. I'm using the somewhat or more comfortable category here intentionally because there's not a great amount of movement in the kind of extreme happy to do it. It's totally comfortable with this. This is a little bit of a touchy subject, a little bit of trying to make sense of whether this is okay. But even still, you can see movement in a similar direction from 2023 to 2025. 33% somewhat comfortable or more with AI, up to 51%. Seeing AI as an opportunity, going from 64% the previous 2 years up to 72%. And at the same time, seeing AI as a threat, heading downwards, 48% down to 40%. So a kind of positive view growing among advisors that this is a thing, it will be useful, it's going to be kind of a value add as opposed to necessarily a threat. That was 2025 though, so things may be evolving from there. But still, if it does play a role, what type of role? And when we asked advisors, both kind of what appears most promising in terms of how AI could be used and what's most likely to be used by your firm in the next 3 years, basically the same story. Maybe makes sense. They're not thinking pie in the sky. They're thinking the likely to get used are the ones that are promising. They're also the very operational use cases. You can see what really stands out is the note taker in meetings with clients, which in most Zoom calls that you might find yourself in these days is something that may be kind of accompanying what's going on. Also strong customer relationship management support and marketing my practice to attract new clients. Very operational, very back office, kind of how things are run, trying to be more efficient, trying to find improvements, but not the client-facing stuff. You can see retirement savings planning, personalized financial assessments, recommendations, and the more advisory role stuff are the things that are less likely to be seen as promising, less likely to be used by their firm, very kind of focused on this is going to improve efficiency in the same way it does for other industries. At the same time, there were some who do envision and, in fact, already use AI in a more sophisticated way. One of the advisors that we talked to in a focus group said, one of my favorite uses of AI has been a program that essentially is set up to reach across all the different platforms that we have, and in places where we have information stored on clients and would provide us talking points as far as things to go over in the meeting. And a lot of them are things that I wouldn't have necessarily anticipated. It can be trivial stuff like make sure you have a trusted contact person on file, or hey, this person's turning 65, time to talk about Medicare. That's been a good productive use. And this is still highly operational, right? It's kind of setting up the meeting. It's the more advanced version of giving meeting notes. It's kind of giving you a plan for the meeting in advance. But this is starting to kind of creep into the advisor use case that's more about planning, less about operational efficiency. But this in the fall was already taking place for this advisor. We also wanted to know, have you ever asked AI tools a financial related question or a question about investments? And financial professionals, not surprisingly, since it's their industry, it's the thing they're most interested in. More than half say that they have, and a great many of those people say that the AI provided helpful answers to it. That's more than twice the amount of what consumers told us last year in terms of experimenting. I put pre-retirees and retirees because I think this is a key definition of who's responding to this. It's not all consumers. I think you would see a much different picture if we were surveying Gen Z, younger generations. We're also looking at a group that's highly advised. Not everyone has an advisor, but a majority do work with a financial professional. Less needed to kind of be polling AI about financial issues if you have an advisor who's helping you with it already. And in fact, that does play out when you look at other data of who's using AI. No doubt it's younger generations. But a big part of this is also this is 2025. And if you look at some of the studies that have come out in 2026 comparing to 2025, there's been a rapid explosion. Lots of people using it for almost every kind of subject that you could imagine. We're in a different scenario now, just this year than we were in 2025. AI is also gaining ground among pre-retirees and retirees specifically for financial tasks, and this was last year as well. So it's not like it's being just kind of experimented with and tested around by a minority. There are people, you saw the 20% who've been using it and find it useful. And here are some quotes kind of relaying some of these use cases. So I actually took it and to get an idea of the breakdown with a certain amount of money, see what kind of percentage breakdown and suggested funds to put things in. And I actually brought that with me when I had meetings with my advisor, and it actually matched up pretty close to what my advisor said, as crazy as that sounds. And I asked it to make me a monthly budget. It was really cool. I just now need to have to use it. And I do ask certain questions to Gemini or ChatGPT about what is the best investment vehicle or across banks, how are the interest rates and who's offering the best rates, etc. So there are specific use cases, not just kind of messing around, asking it pie in the sky kind of things. These are actual kind of budget investment questions that they are curious about. They may be going to their advisor with it to get confirmation or guidance about whether this is actually right. But there's questions and work being done by AI to help people with financial tasks. And advisors likewise have been impressed with AI and are, in fact, potentially starting to see it as a threat. Maybe not necessarily for their current client base, which may be kind of part of what the response that we've been seeing in the survey represents, but at least for the next generation where it's going to be a more baked in part of how they operate. But you can see some of the quotes from advisors here. he showed me where he asked ChatGPT to create a financial plan, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks pretty solid. Or you can make an entire proposal and then they could take it, run with it through AI and get it back to you with 10,000 things that could be wrong with your portfolio. It's definitely going to compress fees. Or I actually view it as a threat. I read an article a little while ago that listed the 35 occupations that AI is expected to replace. Advisor was one of them. So some interest and curiosity in being impressed with it from advisors, but also a growing sense of a threat of what this means and kind of how it's going to be incorporated in financial services and financial advice. And to kind of quantify that, I think the GDP Val experiments that OpenAI has been doing really starts to put numbers to kind of what this all means. What were the GDP Val experiments? They did it last year. Expert level human professionals, kind of weird that you have to say human professionals these days, but humans with an average of 14 years of experience designed tasks across 44 different occupations, 9 different sectors, financial advisor being one of those occupations. The tasks were designed to take human experts 4 to 7 hours to complete, and then they had both human experts and AI models complete the tasks and had another set of human experts blind rate the output. And on average, people took about an hour per review of the output that was provided. So this is a serious experiment with rigorous methods, taking very seriously the fact that you can't just rely on some of the tracking that you see of how well AI can do in a math Olympics or something that measures movement in how good it's getting, but not real life application necessarily. So how did it do? You can see the results here for personal financial advisors, kind of middling for a lot of different AI. Claude, though, for whatever reason, has their model had advanced quicker in 2025. And you can see reached or exceeded parity is how to think about this with human financial advisors 64% of the time. And as a reminder, this is being judged by other human advisors. So this is not just kind of consumers looking at it and thinking this looks flashy. It's given me a lot of detail. I don't know how to judge it. Advisors were actually going through the output and trying to figure out which ones they liked best, what they thought was good or not. And as to kind of layer on top of that, one of the biggest reasons AI lost some of the kind of head-to-heads of against humans was formatting mistakes. So they would have a presentation that it created or some sort of kind of output where there was messed up formatting and kind of big, kind of weird blocks of black text or something like that, things that would not instill confidence that someone had done financial advice for you properly, which I think is important because that's a very superficial aspect of why things were losing and something that I think they're already kind of figuring out how to eliminate out of what the output looks like. But that was 2025. All of what we've kind of looked at has been 2025. And as I've been saying here, 2026 models have improved from an average of 47% meet or exceed parity. So that's over all of the occupation tasks that it tested it on, not just the financial advisor, but going from 47% to this year in March, the latest for ChatGPT models was 83%, and in April, 85%. And if you look at kind of the information on the chart here, it's a doubling time of capability of 237 days. So less than a year, it's doubling its capability. And that means that sometime this summer, it's expected to reach full parity here with the human experts that it's testing against. This is a exponential growth that I don't think we've fully kind of grasped that we're already mid-curve here. and not just kind of thinking about 5 years down the line. Anthropic also made big news this year, releasing 10 AI agents purpose-built for financial services work in May 2026. You may have heard about this, seen the announcement. You may be at a firm that has been working with it. Offers a lot of capabilities that are pretty sophisticated. On the research coverage side, it will develop pitch books, meeting briefs, earnings reviews, market monitoring. On the operations side, does valuations, reconciliations, audit prep, etc. But the common thread of the idea of it is not to create a robo-advisor. It's that these agents produce drafts or briefs that a licensed professional then reviews and owns. So it becomes a very different model for kind of thinking about AI and the role of computers here from when we were looking at it in 2017 and even as this started to emerge in 2022 and 2023. And I think there's needs to be a new model for how we think about this. This is just an idea for kind of how to make sense of it. I don't think we know yet kind of what the kind of practical application looks like. But instead of the kind of robo-advisor, kind of, is this a replacement for advisors? Does it work? Do clients prefer it? Do they not? It's more like something where AI drafts, the AI advisors sign off, the institutions act as kind of the trust layer or the structure that people will believe and kind of understand to be accountable ultimately. And then from the client side, clients don't kind of wake up in the middle of the night, kind of turn over in their bed and start texting their advisor in the middle of the night, but they may do that with AI chats. But they are arriving with anxiety. AI responds with information that may be in the moment with the advisor. It may be kind of on the side of the bed as they're stressing and can't sleep. The advisor absorbs both of these, the client anxiety and questions, as well as the AI information that it's coming up with. And then they have to own the judgment. They have to make a call. They have to understand what this bigger picture looks like and be responsible for it. And again, with an institution backing that and providing accountability that the clients can buy into. So this sparks a lot of implications. I won't get into all of them, but maybe chief among them, in my eyes, what does this new model do to advisor credibility? In these same focus groups that we've been talking about, we heard both sides of the story. One, a person at the top here who wouldn't want to work with a financial advisor that wasn't using all the best tools and resources. Why would you pay someone to get advice if they were kind of hamstrung in what they were able to use to give you the best advice and help you make the best decisions? Versus the person on the bottom who thinks, well, for me, I would want an advisor who just doesn't need AI to answer my question. I would want them to be smart enough in the job to be able to answer themselves off the cuff. I wouldn't feel comfortable having an advisor that needed to use AI. I think there's a difficult kind of balancing act here when we go beyond the operations, kind of meeting notes and kind of pre-structured meetings, to something that's more open and transparent, that it's part of the planning and advice process. So, some last issues to consider. Mention the impact on credibility when it comes to advice. It's also the case that advisors may need to lean more on the relational and the coaching role that they play. A lot of economists have described that as being one of the more AI-proof aspects of people's jobs. If there's a relational aspect, if you can coach people, AI could kind of walk people through coaching, but it doesn't feel the same as when a human is there and can understand you and is part of the journey with you. Do advisors need to lean into that more? And then lastly here, exponential growth. So this doubling of capability in months means that we're thinking about 2026 and how does this make sense in kind of the hypothetical getting rolled out this year. if the capability grows like it's been doing, what does it look like in 2027? What does it look like in 2028? I think the danger is that this moves so quickly that we don't really know how to keep up with it. And it's really probably the kind of institutions and the ability to incorporate some of these things that holds back some of what the capabilities may be just even next year. Um, the last part of this, the fourth issue to consider, maybe less in terms of AI, but in terms of kind of the insights that this represents. Retiree Insights 2026 fields this July. So we are working on the questionnaire now. It's not finalized. Sponsors have the ability to help us craft that. And I think among other questions that we investigate in this research, that the development of AI in 2026, these massive gains, become all the more important to understand this year. This is one of those topics, unlike most retirement and financial services questions that don't evolve much year to year. Um, uh, just annual studies may not be enough to really grapple with this. So sponsorship still open as the sales tactic here. If you're interested in this, if you want to be part of the research and you would like to know how this is shaking out, there's a lot of depth that these studies produce and would love to have you be part of it. So questions, comments, ideas, interpretations of what this could all mean.
Hey Doug, Suresh here. Happy Friday, and
Happy
thank you for
Friday. How's it
yeah,
going,
thank you.
Suresh?
Yeah, thank you for sharing this. Appreciate hitting on a topic that's, as your study showed, very transformative. It's exponential as that curve showed. Two questions. One, I was just curious if your research sliced that comfort level feedback between younger advisors and the tenured advisors. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, given that the group responds differently to technology. So that was the first part. If you did slice that, if the numbers look different. And the second question is, did your study look at the expectations of advisors from the carriers? And I'm operating with the assumption that possibly they're using their own subscriptions of
Hmm.
ChatGPT or Claude or whatever tool. But if the carriers were to sort of, build the tool out, would then the usage of that, I think you showed something like just 30% used it for client support, sales support.
Hmm.
I'm wondering if your research would examine that and then would the numbers go up? Yeah.
Yeah, both are really good points. Both not things that we have data on. Well, we do have data. I haven't looked at the advisor age. That would be a really interesting wrinkle of this because it does matter for consumers and likewise whether younger or just less tenured. Because I would imagine that there's kind of a different equation for people who already have kind of a working approach to planning um, that would be different from someone younger in the field, at least, less tenured and more interested in kind of new tools that might be changing it in the future. So we have I haven't looked at that. That's a great idea, and we can take a look. I'll shoot you an email when I get off this and let you know what I see. The second part is not something we've asked too much about, but I think in the prior years, so in 2023, we added these questions about AI because it seemed like we needed to start taking stock of just attitudes about this, that this was an evolving thing to track, but not something that was baked in yet or part of how people actually operated. So a lot of the questions that we had been asking um, to this point were more about those attitudes of what's next and what do you see this being used for. We have asked how have you used it, but less about the logistics of kind of what are their needs around it and where does that come from, I think is a great question that we're planning on asking in this year's survey of advisors, in part for kind of just AI usage, but also in the training that complements it or kind of separates from that of the coaching aspect of that more holistic advisory role. How does that play out, and what are the needs that people have to figure out that new model of things? But yeah, part of that should be and absolutely can be kind of what resources, how is it working within your firm? I think that's a great idea.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thanks for joining. You can find more of these coffee breaks on our website. Also, content on LinkedIn and YouTube and all over the place. You can find recordings of this and previous discussions on our Coffee Break Hub. But very much appreciate your time on a Friday. Hope you have a great weekend. And stay tuned for Greenwald Insights and Coffee Breaks, and stay tuned for more about AI this year from us and pretty much everyone else. So, thanks.